Today I want to give a short break at our serial story of Back to the Earth and have some fun. I got some jokes from this website, the Potty's Laugh Line. Hopefully you will like them as well. Now please relax and enjoy the time like me. The Magician on the Cruise Ship. The magician was working on a cruise ship in the Caribbean. The audience would be different each week, so the magician allowed himself to do the same tricks over and over again. There was only one problem. The captain's parrot saw the shows every week and began to understand what the magician did in every trick. Once he understood that, he started shouting in the middle of the show, "Look! It's not the same hat! Look! He's hiding the flowers under the table! Hey, why are all the cards the ace of spades?" The magician was furious but couldn't do anything. It was the captain's parrot after all. One day, the ship had an accident and sunk. The magician found himself on a piece of wood in the middle of the ocean, and of course the parrot was by his side. They stared at each other with hate, but did not utter a word. This went on for several days. After a week, the parrot finally said, "Okay, I give up. What'd you do with the boat?" Man walks into a bar. A man walks up to the bar with an ostrich behind him, and as he sits, a small cat jumps up on the stool beside him. The bartender comes over and asks for their order. The man says, "I'll have a beer," and turns to the ostrich. "What's yours?" "I'll have a beer too," says the ostrich. The cat says, "I'll have a half beer, but I'm not paying for it." The bartender pours the beer and said, "That will be $3.40, please." The man reaches into his pocket and pulls out the exact change for payment. The next day, the man, ostrich, and cat come again, and the man says, "I'll have a beer." And the ostrich says, "I'll have the same." And the cat says, "I'll have a half glass of beer, but I'm not paying for it." Once again, the man reaches into his pocket and pays with exact change. This becomes a routine until, late one evening, the trio enter again. "The usual?" asks the bartender. "Well, it's close to last call, so I'll have a large scotch," says the man. "Same to me," says the ostrich. "I'll have a small scotch, but I'm not paying for it," says the cat. "That will be $7.20, says the bartender. Once again, the man pulls the exact change out of his pocket and places it on the bar. The bartender can't hold back his curiosity any longer. "Excuse me, sir, how do you manage to always come up with the exact change out of your pocket every time?" "Well," says the man, "several years ago I was cleaning the attic and found an old lamp. When I rubbed it, a genie appeared and offered me two wishes. My first wish was that if I ever had to pay for anything, I just put my hand in my pocket and the right amount of money will always be there." "That's brilliant," said the bartender. "Most people would wish for $1 million or something, but you'll always be as rich as you want for as long as you live." "That's right. Whether it's a gallon of milk or a Rolls Royce, the exact money is always there," says the man. The bartender asks, "One other thing, sir. What's with the ostrich and the cat?" The man replies, "My second wish was for a chick with long legs and a tight pussy." Beggars and choosers. Two college students, Frank and Matt, are riding on a New York City subway when a beggar approaches them asking for spare change. Frank adamantly rejects the man in disgust. Matt, on the other hand, whips out his wallet, pulls out a couple of singles, and gladly hands them over to the beggar with a smile. The beggar thanks him kindly and then continues on the other passengers. Frank is outraged by his friend's act of generosity. "What on earth did you do that for?" shouts Frank. "You know he's only going to use it for drugs or booze." Matt replies, "And we weren't?" Torrential rain. One night, a torrential rain soaked South Louisiana. The next morning, the resulting floodwaters came up to about 6 feet into most of the homes there. Mrs. Boudreau was sitting on her roof with her neighbor, Mrs. Thibodeau, waiting for help to come. Mrs. Thibodeau noticed a lone baseball cap floating near the house. Then she saw it float far out into the front yard, then float all the way back to the house. It kept floating away from the house and back in. Her curiosity got the best of her, so she asked Mrs. Boudreau, "Do you see that baseball cap floating away from the house, then back again?" Mrs. Boudreau said, "Oh yes, that's my husband. I told him he was going to cut the grass today, come hell or high water."